8 times rappers got left off songs. One of the best feelings in hip-hop is killing a feature, but the feature is an art form of its own, and some artists are better at it than others. Unfortunately, many features end up on the cutting room floor when it comes time for mastering, and many verses are lost, condemned to sit on a producer's hard drive for all time. Here are 8 guest verses that never truly came together, leaving us to wonder what could have been. Before we start the video, make sure you click the like button and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Number 8. Trippie Redd on God's Plan. It's hard to imagine the career arc of Ohio native Trippie Redd in the context of this missed chance. Would he have been an oversight superstar, complete with a Drake cosign? Where would he be today? Considering he's still pretty successful, I'm sure Trippie's not losing any sleep over it. Even so, you'd have to think he'd be even more successful had he featured on the Drake single that ruled the airwaves in early 2018.
Like Drake, one of my idols, and I've been fucking with Drake even when I first started fucking with you. And you tried to make it seem like I tried to go to Drake and make a record with him and then try and come back and be friends with you when it didn't happen. When in reality, I had God's Plan in my phone for the longest, never recorded the verse. And just that's what it was.
It must sting a little bit more than normal because by Trippie Redd's own admission, it was entirely his fault for not getting the verse in on time. The then 18-year-old sat on the God's Plan beat for 2 months, and it seemed like a sure thing that he would feature on the song, especially when fans noticed that Trippie's DJ included Trippie Redd's tag when playing an unfinished version of God's Plan at a New Year's Eve party. However, when the snippet released, Drake gave Trippie one more day to record a verse for it, but the stars were not aligned. Trippie Redd played 2 sold-out shows that night while battling the flu, and slept off the deadline. And Drake released one of the biggest songs of 2018 the next day. At the time, this seemed like a huge missed opportunity, and perhaps it still is, considering the record was recently certified diamond. But Trippie Redd, without an album to his name at the time, has managed to do just fine on his own, signed to Quality Control with a debut album under his belt. Number 7. Takeoff on Bad and Bougie. A truly inescapable song for nearly a year, Migos' chart-topping Bad and Bougie infamously left Takeoff off the record. While he's neither featured nor credited, Takeoff insists that there was a scheduling conflict which led to him not being able to drop a verse on the song. Seems innocuous enough, and if that was all that would come of Takeoff being left out, we probably wouldn't have much reason to talk about it. But the topic of his omission from the song spawned a social media firestorm. When he was asked about it at the 2017 BET Awards, DJ Academics referenced his lack of participation in the song, leading to Takeoff infamously mumbling, "Do it look like I'm left off Bad and Bougie?" The whole interaction would ultimately set off Joe Budden, who walked off camera, and for a moment it seemed like Migos were really about to square up with Joe for the disrespect. But alas, nothing came of it, and Migos and Joe Budden have since reconciled. Did the whole thing have a point? Not really, but hey, at least we got some pretty decent memes out of it. Number 6. 2 Chainz on Chloraseptic. Some people don't take kindly to fruitless collaborations, and 2 Chainz was not pleased when Eminem released the tracklist for his album Revival, and the Atlanta rapper was nowhere to be found. It turns out that the two had been collaborating for some time, with 2 Chainz teasing the feature in July of 2017. Fresh off an album of his own, Pretty Girls Like Trap Music, 2 Chainz seemed like he was on a roll, and he talked about working with Slim Shady at length on a radio broadcast on DJ Drama's Shade 45. But when Eminem finally dropped the tracklist on December 5th of that year, 2 Chainz was notably not listed. His feature on the track Chloraseptic had been replaced with a verse from New York rapper Fresher. He made his anger known with an Instagram post of the tracklist and a few emojis signifying that he wasn't happy. But the animosity was short-lived. The post would be replaced the next day with a picture of 2 Chainz and Eminem standing together, with the noticeably cheery caption, "Grateful for the opportunity, new music on the way." It was a surprisingly pleasant about-face from the Atlanta native. Why can't we all get along? And for everyone wondering, though it didn't make the album, the version of Chloraseptic with 2 Chainz' verse on it came out a few months later in the form of a remix. Number 5. Kanye West on Nice for What. Another Drake classic that would go on to rule the airways and become an anthem for disrespectful hype beasts. But few know that Yeezy himself was slated to feature on the track. Radio personality Ebro revealed that Kanye was supposed to feature on Nice for What on his radio show in May of 2018. While he didn't get into too many details, Ebro suggested that a version of the song with Kanye's verse included may exist somewhere. But don't hold your breath, it's not coming out anytime soon. Any chance we had of hearing the verse was dashed by the ensuing beef between Drake and Pusha T, which ended up hitting Ye as collateral as well. While Kanye actually did not participate participate in the verse, he orchestrated one of the most brutal disses in recent memory, when Pusha T ousted Drake for having an illegitimate son in verse. Truly an iconic moment for hip-hop in the 2010s. But alas, the Kanye verse is lost for all time as a result. Unless it gets leaked, that is. Honestly, I'd say it was worth it. Number 4. Pusha T on Maybach Music 6. The Virginia Beach native Pusha T has handled more than his fair share of beef throughout his storied career. But what was supposed to signal a ceasefire only served to stoke the flames of his historic beef with Lil Wayne. Pusha T and Lil Wayne were both expected to feature on rap mogul Rick Ross's Maybach Music series, trading verses on Maybach Music 6, on Ross's 2019 album Port of Miami 2. Ross has a history of working with both Wayne and Push, who have spent the better part of the past 10 years trading sneak disses and subliminal lines. The beef has gone on so long that it was inherited by Drake from his former mentor, sparking the aforementioned Drake-Pusha T feud in 2018. While Ross did not see anything personal between the artists, he insisted that the track would signal the end of the long-running feud between the two rhymers.
One of the most meaningful records is Maybach Music 6. Now what I did with this record was something different. I sent two dudes that I'm huge fans of the record, never discussing who would be on it. I wanted to make this special in a different way.
However, when Maybach Music 6 finally dropped, Pusha T's verse was nowhere to be found, with only Lil Wayne's verse appearing on the album version of the song. It didn't take long for the Pusha T verse to leak onto the internet though, and many listeners would claim that the verse included bars directed at Drake. For Rick Ross's part, he would go on to say that he did not feel that the time was right to settle the feud between Lil Wayne and Push, but honestly, it seems like Rose is reaping the benefits of the beef for himself on this one. Number 3. Travis Scott on Kids See Ghosts. Travis Scott has made it very clear that he holds Kid Cudi in high regard, once comparing the Cleveland rapper to King of Pop Michael Jackson. So when Kid Cudi and Kanye West collaborated for their full-length effort Kids See Ghosts, you'd think that Travis Scott would have been ecstatic to get the opportunity. While writing an article for GQ, Mark Anthony Green witnessed the FaceTime call from Ye and Cudi to Travis, with the two pressing Scott for a collaboration prior to the release of their album. Ultimately, all Green would say about it was that Travis was musically preoccupied with his upcoming album Astroworld, and while he states that Scott did submit a verse, we don't know for what song or even what it sounded like. While Travis Scott missed the chance to be on Kids See Ghosts, he still went on to have a wild success in 2018, with Astroworld becoming a chart-topping blockbuster of an album. Number 2. Meek Mill on What Would Meek Do? The Philadelphia rapper Meek Mill has had a great career thus far, and Pusha T is a vocal fan, enough so that he wrote a song centered around the titular question for his 2018 effort Daytona. Pusha T and Ye trade bars back and forth, but Meek Mill himself is not featured on the track, and it's not exactly clear why. In an interview with Rolling Stone, Pusha T gives high praise to Meek Mill, and states that he wanted him on the album. All he says about it though is that the collaboration didn't happen, simply saying, quote, "We didn't get to it." Some suggested that Pusha T did not want to ask Meek Mill for a verse, considering he had just been released from prison. While invoking Meek Mill's legal struggles to emphasize the need for racial justice, Pusha T wasn't able to get Meek on his album. Number 1. Popcaan on Controlla. Views from the 6, released in 2016, saw Drake channeling all sorts of reggae and dancehall vibes, for better or for worse. Part of the rollout for his new wave of Drake included a guest spot for rising dancehall artist Popcaan on the song Controlla, which would end up leaking before the album was released. It wasn't the only track leaked, but fans were surprised when several of the leaked tracks didn't even make the final cut for the album, and neither did Popcaan's verse. We aren't exactly sure why Drake decided to leave his verse off, but Popcaan seemed relatively unfazed. Prior to the full release of Views, Popcaan released a new song of his own on YouTube, perhaps playfully throwing shade at Drake for leaving him off the final product. Even so, it seems like a huge bummer on Popcaan's end. A feature like that could have changed the trajectory of his career, seeing how Controlla was one of Drake's biggest songs ever. On the bright side, Drake recently signed Popcaan to his record label, Ovo Sound, so it's possible we will hear them collaborate in the future. Are you upset you never got to hear some of these verses? Let us know in the comments section below. And before you leave, don't forget to click the like button and subscribe to our channel.